how much trouble do you think Mr. Sunak and his government are in right now?
Relatively little when it comes to the sort of the scandals that we're seeing dominate the front pages today. I mean, there are naturally going to be more questions asked because very little has actually been confirmed so far about exactly which rules Mr. Zahawi may have broken or exactly how much tax he's actually repaid. I think my colleague on The Guardian was reporting that it was around a 30% penalty. And so whilst it's probably true that lots of people do sort of make incorrect tax returns every year, I think the difference in this case is that it's a government minister, that it is alleged to be a seven-figure sum, and that this isn't something that happened sort of 20 years ago. The tax event happened sort of about 2 or 3 years ago, apparently. So there are probably going to be questions that continue to loom. What obviously we saw during the Boris Johnson era was that ministers and MPs became so fed up with these kind of questions dominating the narrative that they didn't get to talk about policy issues or what they really wanted to do. And that's the danger, again, that Rishi Sunak's government sort of has this ongoing issue that it's unable to shake the kind of SLEAZE culture that engulfed Boris Johnson's premiership. That's probably where the greatest danger lies for Rishi in the long term.
Did the Arden departure shock or surprise you, not least for one of the principal reasons that she offered? I love the one that the tank was empty. I think that's incredibly honest and to be celebrated. But the fact that it is a ghastly world, and Alex has just been saying, and you've echoed much of it, these guys and gals cannot put a singular foot wrong, even if it's a great big footstep like a big, big tax bill. Why would any sensible, calm person want to be getting into it?
There is just such granular scrutiny on everything politicians do. And I think there is a reluctance, particularly when you talk to British MPs, to acknowledge the real downsides of the job, because what they don't want to do ultimately is put off good, well-meaning people from following in their footsteps and taking up that career. So I think they're reluctant to admit the extent to which things like online abuse plays a role in how much they decide actually that this job is too hard, that it requires too much energy and too much of a thick skin to sort of shoulder to weather those kind of storms. So I think absolutely her reason given is definitely going to be accurate. She's probably decided she doesn't have enough in the tank. She's still relatively young as well. So, wanting to spend more time with your family when you have a sort of young child and a partner that you haven't yet married does absolutely kind of make sense, I think, to a lot of people. Having said that, obviously, there's the background to this, which is the sort of slow depletion in the polls of her and her party's popularity. There's an election coming up later in the year. And interestingly, the sort of narrative being painted by the incoming Prime Minister in New Zealand is quite similar to what Rishi Sunak has done, which is basically saying, look, the last administration was defined by dealing with a big health crisis, which led to a big economic crisis. That is what this government's going to be focused on. We're going to pare back all sorts of legislation that we had previously earmarked to be pursuing. We're just going to focus on the people's priorities, a phrase that's very similar to what Rishi Sunak's been saying here. So I think some very interesting parallels.